this is Cathynan Herbal ABC, and I'm Cathynan. I'm called that because that's what my oldest grandson likes to call me, which is relevant because this series, this ABC that I'm going to be doing, is because I'm putting a book together for a little legacy to my grandchildren. They've all learned a little bit, whether they wanted to or not, about herbs with their nanny, and actually have shown quite a lot of interest, and it's lovely to be able to pass on my little bit of knowledge. And that's what this is also about, is that I have got quite a lot of knowledge put together now, and I don't want it to go nowhere. So yeah, I'm making the book for my grandkids and sticking this out on YouTube, and we'll see what happens to it. Yeah, it's about sharing my love of herbs and my faith in some of the remedies that we'll be talking about. And it's a two-way thing. So please feel free to comment constructive criticism where you think that maybe I've got something wrong, want to talk about it, it's fine. And also any ideas extending our communal knowledge about each herb. And I've chosen this format, quite a simple format, so that I stay on track, because I will veer off all over the place. Quite passionate about my subject, and I can always think of something to say. So what I'm going to do is, it's going to not be, if anything, fast-paced about this whatsoever. The technology, although I'm getting some excellent help elsewhere, my knowledge, I hope, will improve during the series. Yeah, so please don't expect anything too flashy. It's not going to happen. Okay, so the format that I've taken is this. So first, every time I will tell you the herb and its name, and also any Latin names or traditional folk names, whatever that I know of. Especially as some of the folk names tell us 10 times more than the Latin names do. Well, that's not true. I mean, if your knowledge of Latin is there, of course Latin names tell you something, but the folk names tell you something that's really inherent in our history, and it's a lovely way to learn about the herbs, is to learn why they're called what they're called. Then the first thing I'll go into every time after the name is the cautions. So I will say, to start with, if you have anything serious wrong with you, of course consult a professional practitioner. My main philosophy about all these herbs is that if you keep gently looking after yourself every day, then the likelihood of you falling for some of the more serious diseases is lessened. And also, if you do fall, then your recovery time is, I think, quickened, made faster. And the whole process becomes a little bit easier. I've seen my friends drop, and my system is such that I can kind of get anything and it doesn't hit me too hard. I mean, if, you know, I could get berry and die tomorrow, and that would make me sound like a hypocrite. But on a general level, my health is pretty good, especially for my age, and I'm on no pharmaceuticals whatsoever. Okay, I will own up to the odd ibuprofen, and I've had a very rough winter, which I'll tell you more about because it is again relevant because of the herbs that I use to look after myself. And that's what this is all about as well, really, is we can look after ourselves. We don't need to go running to the doctor for everything. We were taught that we should. But now, as most of you realise, these things are letting us down. And also the pharmaceuticals that are used, quite often the side effects are far worse than the original problem. So I've got a million reasons why I respect herbs so much. I'm going to stop now because if I do it too long, the technology doesn't like it. So I'm going to come back in a second. So this is the second part of my general introduction to Cathynan's Herbal ABC. After the cautions, we'll go through the cautions quickly first. So I will go through these cautions at the beginning of every herb that I talk about, primarily just to get it over with, so that we can get on to all the good stuff. And also, if you are in the category of people that this herb wouldn't be particularly good for, you can switch off if you want to. So I'll tell you straight up. I mean, the most sensitive people usually with the herbs are pregnant women, and I will always tell you if it's slightly dangerous for a pregnant women to be using each herb. And apart from that, most of the herbs I use are not dangerous. They will be dangerous to some people just about the same way as almost anything else is. If that's the case, I will tell you. Okay, so then I'll go on to the actions of each herb and their medicinal uses and what they can help prevent and sometimes cure. Quite simple, but it'll take some explaining for each herb. Then we'll go on to preparation, and the preparation that I'm using mainly is the preparations that I use, and because my lifestyle is quite hectic usually, these preparations take no time at all, and they take no great medicinal knowledge. Quite often teas, sometimes an ointment, sometimes a tincture, nothing very complicated. This will change. I've only had my most recent gardens a few years. And as, of course, they grow more mature, I have more herbs to harvest. And so my ambitions on how to use those herbs are going to change. Basically pretty basic preparation. And now the recognition of each herb. So the herbs I'm using are all either easy to grow, easy to find, or very cheap to buy in this country. This was my premise when I first started collating 5 years ago. Started to collate the knowledge I got from the course that I did, which covered everything, Ayurvedic and Chinese, which is all wonderful. And I can certainly chat about that sort of thing. But I wanted this first alphabet anyway to be totally about stuff that you can do yourself and that involve very little money. Mainly because I learned about herbs because I was a single mum of 3 kids, because the doctors was a long way away, because I had become disillusioned completely with the pharmaceutical industry, especially in the face of what the treatments they were trying to give me for my children. And that was when I genned up and started looking at alternatives, as did many, 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 many of us. I certainly wasn't alone. But I've kept at it. And being quite extreme in nature, I wanted to delve into exactly how we could look after ourselves. And I'm kind of spent the rest of my life doing that, really, more or less. So after recognition, which will help you with planting, but also, of course, foraging, we'll go on to how to grow these herbs, most of which I will have some experience of. I've been a gardener quite a lot in my life. And again, most of them are going to be pretty easy to grow because they're largely native plants, because that's my premise in doing this. After that, I go to permaculture. This is a subject that's very dear to my heart, and we will be going into why every plant that we look at is not only good for us, but it's also good for the soil and the environment in general, and the wildlife and the bees and everything. Permaculture is very important to me, and it's going to be an interesting little section of this series, I think. Then I'm going to go into the phytochemicals, and I will stutter and stammer because it's all the science, and I do know this stuff, but it nevertheless trips me up quite a lot. Just so that you know which constituents of each herb is the active constituents that are going to cause an effect. After that, I go to the magic, the folklore of the plants. We have to respect the fact that these plants have been around for a long, long while, and people all over the world have got very similar, actually, stories about each herb. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll go in, at the very end, we'll go in and do a little tarot spread for the influence which each herb. Now, I started learning my herbalism from culpepper, and I would thoroughly recommend anybody who wants to study herbs to look at him. And he was very knowledgeable about the astrology of the herbs, which planet ruled which herb and that sort of thing. So I'll be going into that. And as I say, the tarot. So that's it. So that's what my Cathynan's herbal ABCs basically going to look like. Hiya. So this is B for Borage. I'm going to tell you the names to start with. I keep forgetting, and I've had to do this. This is about the third take just because I forget the names, which I must write onto my book that I'm making. So borage is also known as, the Latin name is Borage officinalis, or Borage officinalis, one or the other. Another name is quite obvious, is starflower. Another one is common bugloss. I only knew before of viper's bugloss, and I'm not really sure as yet what the bugloss bit means. Something for me to look up, unless one of you clever people can tell me. But yeah, I don't know offhand. And the other one, which gives you a big clue about how useful it is in permaculture, which we will come to obviously later, is called bee bread. So that's the names. So the cautions which I'll always do first. The cautions with borage: don't ingest the essential oil, don't ingest any essential oil, they're really intense, can do you quite a lot of damage. One thing with borage, if you've got sensitive skin, they don't bother me, but they will bother some people. They're not as bad as a stinging nettle. I haven't got a sting, but they're kind of prickly. And if you have sensitive skin, I guess you could end up with a rash. So wear gloves maybe while harvesting them. Another little caution is that they contain pyrrolizidine alkaloids. Now, loads of stuff that you eat contains pyrrolizidine alkaloids, which are actually toxic in isolation, but should be safe enough in tea or in seed oil. You'll see later that the dosage for tea isn't massive anyway. You don't go drinking gallons of the stuff anyway, but take particular care if you have liver problems. So that's the end of the cautions. Now we get to the good bits. Borage is one of my faves. I'm going to say that about most of this ABC because I've put my favourite ones first. But hopefully I'll be doing ABCs. They can come out of my ears. I've got so many. This is a 24-part series because I'm not doing X or Z. But yeah, I've got enough information to be going on and on. Okay, so the big thing about borage for courage, lovely herb, and the first thing we come to is its ability to restore your adrenal glands, which fight or flight mode, your adrenal glands come into play. Whether it's fear or stress, your adrenal glands have to work sometimes quite a lot, quite a long time in this modern world, where we haven't got the stress of possibly being eaten by a crocodile or attacked by a bear, or I don't know, the dreadful one-off fight or flight situations, but we do have a lot of little microaggressions and micro circumstances that can trigger this fight or flight. What do they call it now? They call it something different: fight, flight, freeze or fawn. Are these adrenal responses. So anyway, borage gives you courage and restores your adrenal glands. It's also an emollient, so it's very soothing. It's diuretic, so it makes you pee. It's refrigerant, which cools you down, and it's antidepressant. It stimulates the production of prostaglandin, which helps your body assimilate iron. So you can see how all this stuff is feeding into this borage for courage thing. Also, it's good medicine for the heart. Again, heartiness is courage. And for melancholy. And, as we said, to promote courage. Strengthens the adrenal glands, particularly when they're weak from cortisone, whether that cortisone has come from stressful situations or whether you've had pharmaceutical cortisone, hydrocortisone I think it's called. So in either of those cases, borage will help get over that maybe. As we said, anti-stress, but also mental exhaustion. It's an anti-inflammatory for the stomach and the intestines, especially when the cause is toxins. It's also beneficial against allergies, infected colitis or a gastric ulcer. Borage oil and evening primrose oil combined are anti-cholesterol but really check with your doctor if you're going to use evening primrose if you're on any other medication, especially if that medication is antidepressant. Can be dangerous with evening primrose, but to use externally is no problem at all. So this combination of evening primrose and borage, but even borage on its own, is anti-aging, it's against wrinkles and dry skin. It's high in mucilage and so makes an effective demulcent which soothes the respiratory system as well as an emollient for sore and inflamed skin. It induces sweating, so you're getting rid of toxins both through your wee and through sweating. The seed oil is rich in polyunsaturated fats, which makes it more beneficial than evening primrose oil for premenstrual problems. It's also good for rheumatism and eczema and other chronic skin conditions. So to prepare borage, it can be used in many forms. We spoke about essential oils, and again, please don't ingest. The seed oil is different though, you can ingest it. And flower syrup. So to make the flower syrup, I haven't actually made borage flower syrup, but I have made dandelion flower syrup, and the procedure can be pretty much the same. So how I made my dandelion syrup, I have made it with the actual dandelion petals left in, and done it straight into agave syrup, heating the agave syrup up very slowly and then leaving it out in the sun, heating it up again and then leaving it. I'm cooking on a gas, I'm cooking on an electric 2-ring, very basic cooker, and it's either on or off. There's no subtlety, so I can't simmer. So I'm just doing, which is quite a good idea to do with the electric anyway, just to save it, bring things up to the boil and just turn it off and then leave it, and as the electric slows down slowly. I think it's the one advantage of electric over gas. The rings retain their heat, and so you can just leave things on them and they'll be still getting that heat, and then you can just judge it. But the second way that I did my dandelion syrup, and I think this might be quite good although the borage flowers are so pretty, might be nice to leave them in, but also if you want to strain it, I do it in water first, so just double the amount of water to borage flowers, double the amount of water, and then do this same process, keep bring it out to the boil and then simmer it for as long as you think. You can have a little taste of the water to see. It will soon tell you. It will taste cucumbery as soon as it's taken the borage on, and then mix it with the agave syrup. So both ways are pretty simple, and you can find your own ways, and it's fun to experiment. So all the aerial parts can be used to make a tea, which can be drunk 3 times a day. So you take 1 teaspoon of dried flowers and leaves, more if you're using fresh herb. Dried herb is always more concentrated. So a little bit more than a teaspoon if you're using fresh herb, but not much more. Infuse it for 15 minutes. And the dosage is half a cup at a time, so you're not going overboard, you're not drinking gallons. You can also use the flowers to decorate pins. As I said, they're really pretty and give a scent of cucumber. I have made borage flower ice cubes, but someone complained that it's watering down the cocktail. So beware of that. I mean, it's slightly less. I use soda water. It's slightly less soda water if you're using borage ice cubes. Okay, now to recognise and grow. This is the little rather more botanical picture than my painting. Borage is quite easy to recognise and so pretty. It's my, I think this is included anyway. So and I'm reading from these notes. This is the book that I'm going to make. This is like a first kind of draft, and hopefully I do everything by hand. So I write all my notes by hand, and I'm doing all this by hand and painting the little pictures for this legacy for my grandchildren. So this is probably like a... this is the nicest version I've done so far, the most presentable version, but hopefully I'll improve again, do it all over again, and we'll get there eventually. But I quite like to do it because, you know, I'm quite old. I might not last until the end of the ABC, so I'm trying to get something done at least, and my grandchildren are watching the progress of this. They're half excited that their nanny's doing something on YouTube, and they're half already bored for just listening to the sound of my voice. They've heard me rabbit on too much. Anyway, so to recognise it, and borage can be annual or perennial with a coarse hairy stem, and it has simple leaves with branched cymes of blue starry flowers about 2 centimetres across, really tiny. And the leaves are coarsely hairy, ovate leaves, and this is all in the summer. And wear gloves while harvesting. As we said, if you're at all sensitive. To grow it, borage prefers full sun, but will tolerate some shade. It will grow in almost any soil which is not waterlogged. I think I've included a picture of the borage that I grew and then promptly killed. But I've started some more borage plants. So they like they don't want waterlogged soil. But they're fine with almost any other soil. And keep it moist in the summer, which I was doing. My mistake was it had this branch full of flowers, and I was quite impatient to include them in my tea because of some of my health problems, and also I wanted to be able to talk about ingesting them, and the first take of this video had me with a massive grin on my face because I'd been drinking borage tea, and it really is uplifting, it's heartwarming, it makes you feel brave, so I can thoroughly recommend it. But yeah, I took the first branch of these beautiful little flowers for my tea, and then the wind came and blew the only other branch of flowers and leaves off, and the poor plant couldn't cope. So I've replanted it in a slightly less windy area, and I'm going to leave it now. to do its thing, so that it can self-seed. Okay. Yeah, so it can be grown in containers, but they have to be at least a foot wide, because the borage grows quite tall, quite unwieldy to look at, and also quite heavy. It takes up a lot of space. So if you are going to grow in containers, be aware. And they should be planted at least 20 inches or 50 centimetres apart from each other. It self-seeds happily, but you can also collect the seed and sow it in the spring. And you can also divide a large healthy plant. I'm not doing that either this year. I'm going to leave my poor borage plants to do their thing, and then look and see how large and healthy they look in the spring. Maybe leave them another year past to make double sure. I'm very concerned about them now that I've killed one. Okay, so next we'll go on to the permaculture. Yeah, so permaculture, one of the premises of permaculture is that you have to factor yourself in to what you're growing, and your own energy into what's going on. And borage fulfills this, as it's not only medicinal and lovely in cocktails, but it's edible. The younger leaves are better, as with most herbs. They contain vitamins A and C, iron and niacin, and they can be cooked like spinach. Now, they're not going to be horrible, but if you're nervous or if you don't want to risk ruining your dinner, to start with, you can put them in with spinach or any other of your greens that you're growing. You don't have to make them the focus of your meal. Just try little bits here and there, especially if you're feeding a family, especially if that family's fussy. I know what it's like. So its second great use in permaculture is as a pollinator and shelter. So borage's rich nectar earns it the nickname we spoke about, bee bread, because it's so good for the bees. And the shelter it gives is because of its dense foliage, this unwieldy leaves everywhere, is really good for parasitoid wasps and lacewings, which in turn keep other bugs away from your crops. Both borage and its sister plant comfrey are great for the chop and drop method, and it's because of these leaves. It's a popular permaculture concept, and I love it. It means literally what it says. So you just chop the plant and then let it drop. You can chop it a little bit more and tuck it under the soil, but that's basically it. In this way, you've left the roots in there to feed the other plants, and you've got this mulch which is full of goodness too. Both comfrey and borage, because of these unwieldy foliage, both they produce loads of plant matter. So it enriches the soil, suppresses so-called weeds. This is a quick tangent. I'm very loath to call anything a weed these days. The more I find out about what each plant can actually do for us, the less I treat much as weeds. I tend to get the grass out of my beds. Certainly leave the plantain and the dandelions and thistles those sort of things, leave them, because the more I find out about the good they not only do us, but they do to the other plants and to the soil. I don't want to get rid of these things, and I don't want to call them weeds. I think every single thing in the world should be honoured and celebrated, more and more the more I study about it. Okay, so that's my little rant. Borage and comfrey should be chopped before they flower. Because that's when the leaves and the stalks are the richest in nutrients, and so produce the best mulch. You can cover the cuttings lightly with soil, as I said, or with existing mulch. Plants can be chopped after they flower, to allow them to pollinate and to allow self-seeding and to encourage a second bloom. So you could do it half and half within the plant, or half and half of your plants if you've got enough. But as I say, this year I'm so protective of my borage plants now. I'm not going to risk doing anything until they've had a good year of settling in, I think. And I will pray for them every day. Okay, so the next way borage is amazing is as nutrient for soil health. The roots go really deep, catch nutrients, which are then made available to other plants, such as tomatoes and carrots. This is a precious resource for your garden and negates the need to buy in potassium, calcium and other commercial products. So you don't need to go to the garden centre. Sorry, garden centres, but I'm not a fan. You don't need to go to a garden centre to get potassium and calcium. You just have to have the right plants in your garden, and borage is one of them. It's a great companion plant for tomatoes, carrots and all members of the squash family. It can increase pollination for cucumbers, courgettes, pumpkins, melons and tomatoes, and borage is especially useful as it helps to deter hornworm, although hornworm grows up to be I was reading only today, a very helpful butterfly or moth. It might be the hawk's head moth. Again, but anyway, it does if you want to keep them off your tomatoes. And people have also reported improved failure. I'm going to stop now and come back with the next bit on permaculture. I'm going to have to do that sometimes, just chop it in half, because my video camera doesn't like going on for too long. Okay, so the next way borage is precious as a permaculture plant is with your fruit crops. So it's a popular concept that almost anything within permaculture, I'm saying it's a popular concept, that almost anything is better to be in the earth around your fruit trees than nothing being there, than leaving the bare soil, which quickly becomes bereft of nutrients, microorganisms, and life generally. You don't want lifeless soil, and all the time it's bare. That's what you're going to get if you're not careful. That's how a lot of the deserts have happened. So the concept is in permaculture is to get something in there. Now borage is going to be a very helpful herb, as is comfrey, for this reason, for all the reasons that I've already spoken about in permaculture. But it's really helpful and a popular herb in tree guilds. Now, the idea of a guild is probably most popularly known with a guild that it doesn't involve fruit trees at all. It's the Three Sisters Guild, which the indigenous Americans used, which consists of maize, sweet corn, maize, beans, and squashes. And the idea was that the maize provides a stalk for the beans to grow up. The beans fix nitrogen in the soil for the maize and the squash provides the shade because of its foliage, provides the shade and the coolness for the beans to be able to get going before they get to climb up the maize without being burnt by the sun and dried out, as when they're babies. So the permaculturists have taken this guild idea and run with it, and they're using this for the symbiotic relationship between the fruit trees and what you grow beneath the canopy of the fruit trees. Each plant provides the others with pollinators and other beneficial insects, weed suppression, nutritional mulch, shelter, etc. And borage is often included in such guilds. So one of these guilds is by a guy called Jack with an E, Jacke, and it's a guild of the plum tree, and the understory is borage, currant, fennel and kale, and then the ground cover is sweet woodruff. Okay, and another guild by a guy called Toby Hebenway is the apple guild. So the apple tree would have under it astragalus, basil, borage, clover, currants, dill, fava beans, garlic, alfalfa, mint, Siberian peas shrub, wildflowers. Borage is also great near strawberries. I'm going to talk about the phytochemicals now. Borage contains gamma-linoleic acid, mucilage, choline, tannins, and pyrrolizidine alkaloids, as we spoke about. So gamma-linoleic acid, GLA, is also known as N6 or omega-6. It's a fatty acid present in seed oils. GLAs are also known as polyunsaturated fatty acids, or PUFAs. So you've got GLAs and PUFAs. These fatty acids stimulate skin and hair growth. They maintain joint and bone health. They regulate your metabolism, and they maintain a healthy reproductive system. It's helpful to increase GLA consumption in cases of menstrual stress. So again, accentuating the fact that borage is really good for any kind of menstrual problems. Mucilage is a polysaccharide. It's a gelatinous substance present in many plants, including legumes and seaweed. It contains protein. Mucilage protects antioxidant and antimicrobial compounds and helps probiotic bacteria to work in the gastrointestinal system. Remember, we spoke about your tummy and your intestines. Because it controls the release of these bacteria, the antioxidant and the antimicrobial compounds we're talking about. Mucilage is a rich source of dietary fibre and has a laxative effect, counteracts the overproduction of lipids such as cholesterol in the body, hyperlipidemia. So if you suffer from hyperlipidemia, over much cholesterol, borage is your guy. And because of this, helps prevent hardening of the arteries. Mucilage also counteracts hyperglycemia, which is high blood sugar, and can reduce obesity. It's also beneficial with burns, wounds and ulcers, inflammations and irritations, both internal and external. This soothing quality that borage has again. It's also helpful against diarrhea and dysentery. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to, yeah, I'll just go on. Sorry. Choline is a basic compound which synthesizes and transports lipids needed for the brain and the nervous system to regulate memory, mood and muscle control. Choline forms membranes around cells. Some choline is made in the liver, but most comes from food. It's an essential nutrient. It's not a vitamin, but it is similar to vitamin B. Tannins are yellowish, brownish, bitter tasting organic substance that we've all come across in a cup of tea or a glass of wine. They are natural regulators of microbes in the gastrointestinal tract again. Tannins have a physiological effect such as speeding up blood clotting, reducing blood pressure and decreasing serum lipid levels, modulating immune responses. Overconsumption of tannins may cause liver damage, stomach irritation, nausea and vomiting, but they're also very beneficial. Tannins are anti-cancer, antioxidant, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, anti-diabetic, wound healing, cardiovascular protection and anti-diarrhea. Pyrrolizidine alkaloids, as we said, are natural toxins present in many plants as well as in meat, dairy and honey. They're toxic to the liver in isolation, but in seed oil and in most food they're fine. And also, as we said, when you're using them externally, they're fine. And they're there because the plants need them to defend themselves against insects mainly. So we go on to the herbal law and the magic of borage. It's known as a masculine plant under the influence of Jupiter in Leo. Borage has been used to increase psychic abilities and aid divination if placed in a vase on the table. Like alfalfa, borage can also be spread around the house, the outside of the house, for protection, and can also be used indoors to ensure a peaceful household. You can burn the dried herb as incense for calm domestic relationships. You can make a tea by steeping borage in water overnight and then using it with organic cleaning fluids for mopping floors and general cleaning jobs, especially in the corners, always in the corners of your rooms to get rid of the staleness, the stale energy which gathers in corners. This is one reason why roundhouses are so beautiful, is they don't have any corners for the stale energy to get stuck in. So all this for a harmonious home. Borage can also be added to other flowers such as forget-me-nots, blossoms, periwinkle and peppermint. And again, to use it to spray all the corners for a peaceful home and harmonious relationships. And this might seem a little bit contradictory, that borage is also very well known through the phrase, as we spoke about, borage for courage, and we saw how its effect on the adrenal gland feeds into this. theory that people were quite well aware of before we knew the constituents of borage. And historically it's been used by Romans, Celts and medieval knights to send them all into battle with courage. Yeah, and the astrology supports this energy, where alfalfa was Jupiter and Taurus and dealt with material expansion, abundance. Borage has Jupiter in Leo, which is more like expansion of the Leo traits of royalty and big-heartedness and courage. And all this seems a long way from how we were speaking about its use in households for domestic harmony. But one of borage's properties, as we saw, that it restores the adrenal glands. So can it restore the harmony and peacefulness of relationships and households after the battle, to help to give you the courage and the stamina and the resilience to restore the peace and harmony to your home or to your relationship after conflict. So Leo bears this out. Leo is known for stamina and resilience and longevity in relationships. It's a fixed sign. And Jupiter is that abundance of heartiness, big heartiness, generosity that's necessary to restore harmonious relationships and lessen the trauma after difficult times. Borage is also an effective flower remedy, and I've included flower remedies where I mentioned them. I'll include them in the magic bit. Because they deal largely with psychological matters, they could just as easily have been featured in the main section. The borage flower remedy is used to heal a heavy heart, lack of confidence, again that getting rid of that timidness and that small-heartedness with this big, generous, royal, confident courage that Leo gives us, and to relieve depression. Helps develop a buoyant soul. Now the tarot, I did find a correlation between the Hierophant and Borage. I wasn't given any reason why. So the Hierophant is usually associated with Venus in Taurus, not Jupiter in Leo, but there are similarities. Venus and Jupiter are both benefic planets, which means really that they're quite positive, and we spoke about Jupiter's big-heartedness and open generosity, and Venus is the ability to attract and attract love and harmony. So it does kind of work. And Leo and Taurus are both fixed signs, which give this longevity, this getting up every day, doing it again, strength. So this energy of long-lived peace and harmony through courage and stamina is reinforced. And also the Hierophant is symbolic of a successful marriage. So I guess that's important too. So I'm going to go next to doing the tarot to see what more we can find out about our borage. Okay, as you can see, I've turned the camera around. I had no luck looking for a correlation between the tarot and borage. In my deck, the Hierophant that we spoke about is with Sage, which is also Jupiter ruled, so it's kind of relevant, generosity and wisdom. And the World is Comfrey, which is Borage's sister plant, so that's as near as I got to Borage itself. I have ordered a different deck. This is the deck I'm using and will use very often. I've been using this deck for years and it's beautiful. The Herbal Tarot by Michael Tierra and Candice Cantin. But I've ordered a new deck, so maybe that will have Borage in. I'm now looking at the MJ Cullinane Urban Crow Oracle. It's a beautiful deck, and this lady, I think it's a lady, lives in, I think it's Toronto, it's certainly a Canadian city, and has observed crows for some time. The deck is beautiful, and the oracle itself, the explanation, is also very beautiful. So I'm just giving them a last shuffle. Giving them a bit of a shuffle and a cleanse before we start. To get the idea, start thinking about the idea of Borage and this courage and the harmonious home relationships and the successful marriage, maybe. Oh, it's given us one. Oh, and it's abundance again. So it's very much following on from Alfalfa, I think, with this Jupiter feeling and abundance adds to that. Just read what the book tells us, and it's number 1. It says the crows on one side of the bay know that the cannery is a source for a steady and easy meal, making gathering food an effortless task. And as a result, they spend their days enjoying their location. However, the crows who reside on the other side of the bay, where food is scarce, find searching for food much more difficult, and as a result, much of their day is spent focused on survival. The crows who do not live on the cannery side of the bay are unaware that an easy food source exists just a short distance away, nor do they have the time or energy to waste exploring areas further away. Abundance brings a reminder that there is a place where you too will find a myriad of possibilities. Focus your energy and attention on not what you lack, but what you know is out there waiting for you. Let your intuition be your guide. Abundance may appear if you need a reminder that from your current position you might not see what is out there waiting for you. Of course, most of the time this card represents a positive outcome. However, because these crows can be a bit cheeky, the meaning could very well indicate an abundance of something less favourable, such as an abundance of water in your basement. But abundance is certainly a Jupiterian kind of energy. And we'll see if the crows have got anything else to tell us. One turned over left and thought fall out. Oh, got another couple here. Preparation and anticipation. And is anticipation. Just hold them up so you can see them. And this is preparation. A few crows looking quite busy there. And anticipation, just this one crow waiting for something to happen. And a few crows in the background. Okay. I'll read you the cards. So preparation. Oh, it's Seattle. She's based in Seattle. Here in the Seattle area, we have lots of ferries. And these smart birds have mastered the ferry schedule. The crows know when the boats will return and on which side of the road the cars will disembark. While the ferry is crossing the Sound, the birds harvest the clams from the nearby beach. They bring the clams over to the ferry landing and strategically place the clams just right so that when the cars leave the boat, they run over the shells, breaking them apart and leaving fresh clam meat for the picking. Preparation speaks to getting ready for something you know is on the horizon and planning for it accordingly. It's about getting all your ducks in a row, or in this case, clams, so that you achieve the most beneficial outcome. So I guess this relates to our harmonious home, this. So we've got an abundance going on, preparation, working towards this harmonious, peaceful household. And the same, I suppose, in, the courage in battle, and the stamina and resilience we need. So number 3 is anticipation. Each morning when I wake up, there is a crow outside my window on the street lamp, anticipating the arrival of a meal. Perhaps I trained the crow, or maybe it was the other way round. When there is a pattern, we begin to expect a particular outcome. Anticipation brings hope and butterflies in the belly as we expect something to happen that brings joy or satisfaction. There is but one warning: be careful of any attachments held for the desired outcome. If what you receive falls short of expectation, the feeling of joy can transform into disappointment. What are you looking forward to at this moment? How will you adjust if your expectations are not met? Okay. Not particularly clear indications of our relationship to borage. I mean, if somebody can see it better than I can, please let me know. Just going to do a quick animal oracle, see if we get something to tell us about our relationship with borage. Borage for courage, and borage for a happy, harmonious and peaceful household. It's not going to get. Oh yeah, we did get one. Let's have a look. And it's the puffin. Accept yourself and your colourful personality. Feel confident about being you. You are a joy bringer. Let your community nourish and protect you. Ask for help. Teamwork will give you the best results. Oh, so that's quite nice. This puffin for partnership. Just show you the card. And there they are. So that brings us back to the Hierophant and the happy marriage and the harmonious relationship. Nourishing and being confident in yourself, having the courage. Okay, so next week we'll be looking at C for chamomile.